Welcome, wrestling fans. Welcome to Curtain Jerkin. As always, I'm your host, Jacob Grondy, reporting for the Main Event Marks YouTube channel. You can also check me out on Spotify. However you're listening to my voice, I appreciate it. First and foremost, Miro and Lana, Rusev, CJ Perry, they go by many aliases, but they just had a baby. Congratulations to them. We probably won't see them very much on AEW, but we really haven't ever. So that's kind of something I wanted to talk about, like what's up with Miro on AEW. I know it's been, it's kind of talked about to the point of exhaustion, but, he seems to have it all. And he seemed to have it all in WWE, and they didn't really push him. And then now he seems to have it all in AEW, and they're not really pushing him, and he seems to not care, which is interesting to watch. He doesn't seem to mind not being a star. He doesn't seem to mind not being on television. But if he is going to be on television, he seems to enjoy the perception of him being a big star. So it seems like, is it worth it for him to do this? He doesn't know. He'd rather do nothing at all than do something bad in his eyes, which is a very interesting way to go about the world of pro wrestling. But that's kind of a rant. I kind of didn't even plan to do that. It didn't really go anywhere, and I might regret it later. But let's jump over to SmackDown. Biggest news leaving SmackDown was the segment where the Bloodline came out. Jimmy, Solo, Paul Heyman, and Roman Reigns. The Tribal Chief says that Utah is dumb. Not individually, but collectively, y'all are all dumb, which I thought was a very funny and astute point. Like, not individually, because, you have a few people, and they're like, hey, I got a, 4.0 in high school. I'm not dumb. It's like, well, yeah, not you specifically, but like an average. It's hard to argue whether a group of thousands aren't all collectively dumb. So I thought that was a funny way to put that. But then Cody chants, fill the air. Tonight is the first night we can say that The Rock is a member of the Bloodline. The Rock's music hits, he comes out, and he's got the shirt on like he used to have, but it's sleeveless. It's not long sleeve like he used to wear, showing off the guns. Utah bought tickets to SmackDown, but they also got tickets to the gun show. It's kind of like when The Rock transitioned from Rocky Maivia to The Rock we know today, and here we're seeing him transition from the smiling Rock, the face Rock, into The Rock we knew of yesteryear again. Told them that they set an attendance record for the largest gathering of trailer park trash The Rock has ever seen. Still did finally The Rock has come back, but he said, you will have something to tell your 6 inbred grandchildren about. Shut your mouth, fatty. He calls some guy in the crowd fatty. This is classic Rock here. And then The Rock, comes out and says that he's gonna, he says, shut your mouth, fatty. I'll slap the herpes off your lips. Ooh, that was rough. Made fun of Cody crybabies on the internet, said that they are all small crybaby bitches, and if you smell what the Bloodline is cooking, and they are all there to put their ones up. But then The Rock puts the one up, but he extends the L. He extends the thumb, making an L. I don't know if this is to signify the High Chief Peter Maivia, his grandfather, or if this is just supposed to be his little nod at being more important. I'm not sure where this is going, but the simple gesture of the thumb being extended as opposed to just holding the one up like everyone else has done prior was very interesting. Very interesting. So yeah, The Rock, the proper Rock, the reason we love The Rock is back. And that's going to be cool. I mean, I think it's good the way they're doing it. Just extend the story. Extend everyone's story. Cody's story, have him win at WrestleMania. Then have Roman's questioning if he even is the Tribal Chief. And then have the match between The Rock and Roman. You could fucking do that at Backlash. It doesn't really matter. That match will sell the show, would sell out the arena. But it's not the only thing that we had on SmackDown. We had some qualifying matches for the Elimination Chamber. Kevin Owens and Dominic. Truth shows up on SmackDown. Frog Splash from KO. Dom kicks out. Dom asks R-Truth to get him a chair. He says he wants a chair, and then Truth just uses the chair how you would use the chair. He just sits in the chair. Everyone would use a chair this way, other than a pro wrestler, other than Dominic Mysterio in a pro wrestling match. This was comedy gold. Pop-up powerbomb 1, 2, 3. Kevin Owens gets in the chamber, beating Dominic Mysterio. Logan Paul versus The Miz. Logan tries to win the match with Miz's move. Then the guy Jeff shows up. Who the fuck is Jeff? We've been seeing this man for months. Who the fuck is Jeff? All this talk about how AEW doesn't really introduce the people that they showcase. You randomly see Minoru Suzuki show up, and if you're not a fan of Japanese wrestling, you don't know who that man is. I'm not a fan of Logan Paul necessarily. I don't know who the fuck Jeff is. I want a Jeff video package. I want to see Jeff on NXT Level Up, have a few matches. I need to be introduced to Jeff as a WWE fan, and they are not doing that. I feel like not a lot is being talked about Jeff's appearance and how random he is and how we're supposed to already know who Jeff is. I've even listened to the podcast when WWE wrestlers are on Logan Paul's podcast. I'll tune in. I know he has that other guy sitting on the couch, and he had the bearded guy that got kicked off or whatever, but those two guys aren't Jeff. I know Jake Paul. I know a lot of people in the Logan Paul universe, and I don't know who the fuck Jeff is, and I don't know why he's allowed into arenas around the country with brass knuckles. But we're moving on. Jeff is there. Logan does win with Miz's move eventually, and he's going to the chamber. 2 men in the match. Drew and LA Knight are in the chamber. They're jaw-jacking in the back. We're on the road to WrestleMania. The brand split is in shambles. Women's chamber qualifying match. Stratton versus Zelina Vega. Zelina hits a moonsault to the floor, but back in the ring, Stratton hits the prettiest moonsault ever. 1, 2, 3. She's going to Perth. Naomi versus Elba Fire. She drops down. She drops Dawn, her Elba Fire's tag partner, who is on the ring apron, gives her a crotch chop for good measure. You love the Attitude Era being back. Naomi is going to the chamber. Kind of a good concept, qualifying matches, but with the exception of 1 or 2 of these qualifying matches, you already knew who was going to win the shit before they even entered in. So as much as you needed it for logistical purposes and you got the stars out there, it kind of seemed like it was boring to watch. All the signs Braun Breaker, but does this mean that the Wolf Dogs, what does this mean for the Wolf Dogs on NXT? He just won the Tag Team Championship on NXT, and now he's being called up to SmackDown. AOP in a squash match with some guys from Level Up. AJ slaps Carl Anderson. I'm not sure why. I think, Will Smith slapped Chris Rock, and that got a pop. And then you got The Rock slapping Cody Rhodes. That got a pop. AJ Styles slapping Carl Anderson. It's not going to get as big of a pop. It's going to be like a ripple effect. And AJ slapping Carl Anderson is like the furthest ripple that you don't even care about anymore. You're bored of watching the ripple by the time it gets there. EO cutting a promo on Bayley. Kai was scared after that, but Bayley still doesn't trust her, still doesn't want to really fully be involved with Dakota Kai after the rest of Damage Control turned her back on her. We'll see where this goes in the coming weeks, but we're going to be jumping to Raw right now. And a big thing, I want to talk about a few things on Raw, but they introduced Michael Chandler, and then Michael Chandler challenges Conor McGregor standing in front of the WrestleMania sign on Monday Night Raw. Of course, the merger of UFC and WWE forming TKO from Endeavor, or whatever. I'm sure I messed that sentence up, but there was a company called Endeavor that owned UFC. They bought WWE. They made a split company called TKO that now is an umbrella company for UFC and WWE. And this is the first time we've seen UFC come on to WWE programming. You saw it in TNA a decade or so ago, where they tried to have Bellator show up on TNA. You saw it a few years ago when They tried to have a few UFC guys show up on AEW. None of this really worked as well as I think this worked. I mean, the guy was in the crowd. He hyped up the crowd. It's a guy we all know. You know the name Michael Chandler, and you definitely know the name Conor McGregor. So all they had to do is cut these little promos, and I'm hyped. I'm kind of a lapsed UFC fan. I used to be into it a few years ago. I haven't watched one in a few months now. I used to talk about it on the show, but now I gotta watch this. So I think this is great marketing. Just don't have don't have R-Truth show up at UFC or have Conor McGregor slapping Cody Rhodes, and it's all good. You got to do a little cross promotion here. I enjoyed it, but let's get back to the body of the show. A match starts Raw for the second week in a row. You gotta love it. Cody versus Drew, big fight feel here. Looked like we had a match of the month on our hands here, but the goddamn Bloodline come out and attack Cody Rhodes, costing him the win. The Bloodline on Raw. We are on the road to WrestleMania, and it's not just the Elimination Chamber qualifying matches that are leaving the brand split in shambles. It's derailed here, folks. I love it. But that's not all we saw of the Bloodline. Right as Jey Uso was about to beat Gunther for the Intercontinental title, Jimmy Uso rings the bell. He rings it, and he's about to do it like a little beat, but then he stops himself because he realizes a beat would be too sick. He's trying to get boos. He reveals himself, and then boom, there he is, Jimmy Uso. But Jey Uso, even though he's distracted, still fights on. Uso splash, Gunther gets his knees up, 1, 2, 3, and then Jimmy picks the fucking bones. It looks like we are on a collision course, but brother versus brother going into WrestleMania. Let's see what Philly thinks about that one. We also had some, finishing up the qualifying matches, a small Royal Rumble for the women's division on Raw, last spot in the chamber. Raquel Gonzalez is back, and she wins the whole damn thing. All the ladies in the chamber later on in the evening are out there. We have Stratton, Naomi, Liv, Raquel, Becky, and Bianca. And of course, we all know what's going to happen when all these ladies are in the ring at once. This place comes unglued. They start attacking each other. Nia Jax runs in and just attacks them all for no reason, like the jerk that she is. She's going to be wrestling Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley and her had like this split screen interview thing. I'm over the split screen thing. I don't like cable news. I like Pardon the Interruption, but that show's been on for 20 some years. But the split screen argument thing, I wasn't into. That wasn't all the matches that we saw on Raw. We had Miz, R-Truth, and DIY versus Judgment Day. Solid match, but Priest pins R-Truth here. I thought that was kind of supposed to be like the culmination of a storyline. Because Priest kind of kept R-Truth around because he humored him. We'll have to see where this goes. And they said on Raw Talk that they're going to go to SmackDown, so we'll see what happens there. Gable and Ibar, the workhorses of Raw, put on their boots and go at it. This match was the best match on the show, I want to say. Ibar goes for a Doomsault, no one home. Then Gable deadlift Germans the bigger man. He hits a moonsault of his own, 1, 2, no. But then Gable, right as it was a 2 count, he locks in the ankle lock and taps Ibar's Viking ass out. Great match here. And there was no collision because of the NBA All-Star game. But there was Rampage, and the story coming out of Rampage was this ladder match, Jeff Hardy versus Sammy Guevara ladder match. No reason needed for this ladder match. Twist of fate off the ladder from Jeff. Sammy hits a cutter as the chair is wrapped around Jeff's neck. Swanton off the ladder through a table from Sammy. But the real story was that Sammy hits a shooting star. Jeff gets his knees up, but Jeff is such a bigger man than Sammy. He got his knees up in Sammy's chest, flinging the rest of his body downward at his face. Jeff just like his face is broken, for lack of a better term. I'm not a doctor, but I can tell when a man's face is broken. He's bleeding. He looks concussed. But they still go on with the match. Reportedly, Jeff Hardy was knocked out for a moment in this match. Jeff may be actually hurt, maybe actually injured. But Sammy gets the victory here, hitting the GTS after Jeff Hardy was knocked out. There was, wild turn of events. Hobbs and Callis come out from the family, attacking Sammy Guevara at the end of this one. but everyone was really just kind of concerned about Jeff Hardy, I would say. Dustin Rhodes and the Von Erichs, of course, they're in Texas. You got to have the Von Erichs out there versus, I couldn't even find these guys. Hitt, Romero Cruz, and Shimbashi. I found Shimbashi here. Been a wrestler since 2021, and it looks like, they were in Texas. He looks like he kind of came up through the Texas scene here. His most notable wrestling appearance prior to AEW Rampage was Booker T's Reality of Wrestling. They do single out Dustin here. I like this. It wasn't just a squash match. They single out Dustin, but then he hits the crossroads, able to break, and then everyone breaks up the pin. The Von Erichs get tagged in. They lock in claws. Goldust drops them for the 1-2-3. Anna Jay versus Queen Aminata. I thought this was interesting here. Anna Jay, stapled the division. Queen Aminata coming up through the ranks. Jay dodges a hip attack and then doesn't dodge the big knee though. 1-2, Anna Jay kicks out. She catches the Queen in a rear naked choke, but she was unable to choke her fully out. And the Queen hits a headbutt. 1-2-3. So they're pushing the Queen here over Anna Jay. I know, Jack Perry is someone who is not liked in the back after, the situation in August with him and CM Punk and Tony Khan in Wembley. And she's, dating Jack Perry, so maybe she's falling out of favor. But you know what? If you're falling out of favor, start taking L's so you can at least appear on television, because she looks good enough that she can just go out there and get herself over, if you know what I'm saying. So I like this match. I like the pairing. But we had a main event here, a 12-man tag, the Bang Bang Scissor Gang versus the Dark Order, Satnam Singh, Jay Lethal, and Jeff Jarrett. You want to talk about a clusterfuck? But it was fun. Singh and Silver teaming up. This is like Manute Bol and Muggsy Bogues. Hot tag to Daddy Ass. That's right, I said that sentence out loud. This was a fun clusterfuck if I've ever seen one. Even every man hitting their finisher at one point. 310 to Yuma to Reynolds. 1-2-3. Like I said, a lot of fun watching the show, but I kind of feel like the show is skippable every week. I put out a poll. I didn't even realize that the NBA All-Star Game was going to affect AEW Collision. I should have realized that. I wanted to watch the All-Star Game. I generally watch Collision, but they just did not even do it this week. They didn't put it on a weird time. They didn't do any of that shit. They just did not have Collision this week. So I didn't know that. I should have known that. Neither did the AEW fans. I put up a poll on Twitter. What show out of all the wrestling world are you most excited about this weekend? AEW Rampage, Smackdown, Collision, or other? And AEW Collision damn near won it. So most people, it was 100 and some people voted on this thing. Most people didn't realize that Collision was not going to air. So I want to say that they did a bad job letting us know. Apparently the NBA All-Star Game was shit too, that they don't even play defense, or they don't, it was like 200 points they were able to score in this All-Star Game. So that's something they got to work on. I think there might be too many shows on for AEW. If one's skippable and one they don't even do, that's not good for AEW, guys. But I'm going to be posting a WWE Chamber prediction video or podcast as well. So stay tuned for that. And as always, guys, fly high. I'm out.